Greetings, fellow growers of YouTube. I wanted to share with you one of the best decisions that I've made for my garden. Vermicomposting with the Vermihut by Vermitech. I'm coming up on my 1 year anniversary since I started vermicomposting, and I figured I'd make a video to share my experiences with vermicomposting. I purchased my Vermihut at the beginning of November along with my worms from Uncle Jim's Worm Farm. Inside the box is the manual, the base, the 5 trays, the lid, a mat that's supposed to go inside of the lid, some ant traps to prevent ants from getting into your Vermihut, a spout, some rubber spatulas, a rake, a cup, and some old style guards that were supposed to prevent the worms from going down into the leachate compartment, but now has been replaced with the plastic guard that you see on the base. It also comes with a feeding guideline magnet and a brick of cocoa core, which honestly I don't recommend using. I tested it with a TDS meter and got over 1700 ppm of total dissolved salts. My guess, because it's cocoa core, it's probably sodium, unless you flush it with lots of water. It'll leave you with salty castings, and no garden likes sodium. The next step, I cut up the cardboard from the Vermihut as well as the Amazon box to use as the bedding for the worms. Not a fun process to do with scissors. I highly recommend getting a paper shredder with a 12 sheet or higher capacity. I'll have a link down in the description for the paper shredder that I own. After painstakingly cutting up all the cardboard, I filled only 4 out of the 5 trays. That was all that my hands were able to take. Now we're ready for the worms. Uncle Jim's Worm Farm always has a bunch of great deals. I bought 1,000 red wigglers and they gave me an extra 100 super red European night crawlers for free. I also bought a sticker for my grow room door because I don't know why, but Uncle Jim makes me think of Hank Hill. Like, this was Hank Hill's dirty little secret why his lawn was always so perfect. He had a secret vermicomposting business and he sold worms on the side. Next, I mixed up the cardboard and the cocoa core and inoculated it with some earthworm casting tea that I brewed for a few hours using Build-A-Soil castings as the base and some molasses to get the microbes going, with an air stone for about 4 hours. Now it was time for their first feeding. I didn't want to overdo it, so I just used the butt of a romaine lettuce and sliced it up, a bad leaf from a romaine lettuce, and some spent tea leaves, just to let them settle in and get a taste of some different food. Here's the included magnet with the Vermihut system. It's a quick guide of do's and don't do's for feeding your worms. I left the bin open in a well-lit room for about 48 hours in order to deter them from trying to escape, but even when I put the lid on, they were still curious about their new home and new surroundings. They were even exploring outside of the bin. Luckily, it found its way back inside. Fast forward about 9 days, and it was time to check in and do a second feeding. I should point out here that the cocoa mat was actually supposed to go inside of the lid, in between the gap. I didn't know that, so I just used it as a cover for my feed tray to keep the moisture in. The bin inside, as you could see, is very lively. The worms are all over the mat, all over the walls, and as soon as you lift up the mat, you could see all the movement of the worms trying to escape. You could also see some mosquito bits that I sprinkled on top. I think the worms came with some fungus gnats, so a quick and easy way to get rid of them was just to sprinkle some mosquito bits which have BTI. It's effective at getting rid of the gnats without hurting the worms. I checked and saw there was no food from the first feeding, so I added a whole banana peel, an avocado slice, and the avocado pit, as well as more spent tea leaves. I misted the tray with a little bit of water because the cardboard was a little on the drier side since it was a new bin and it was open for a few days prior. Then I laid the mat back down and closed it all up. Fast forward 10 months and it's harvest time yet again. I have a big 50-gallon dog food bin that I use to store my soil in, and I found that the trays fit perfectly on top, where I could pop it in and just shake, shake, shake until all the castings fall through, and left over on top is the big bits that haven't been digested yet. I toss those back into the active feeding tray, and the empty tray gets filled with fresh cardboard bedding and set on the bottom. This is the end result after shaking all the castings through. Fantastic, well broken down castings that are going to sit in this bin for about 2 more weeks before they're ready to be used or saved for later. Because I added a whole bunch of dry, fresh cardboard, I made sure that the next feeding was going to be a very wet one. I added a whole gallon of spent tea leaves that I had defrosted. I also put about 4 whole banana peels, the skin of 2 cantaloupes, the skins of a bunch of carrots and potato peels, as well as 2 cabbage leaves. In order to help the worms with their digestion, I added some homemade grit on top, which consists of equal parts azomite, oyster shell flour, glacial rock dust, and basalt rock dust. I covered it with a generous amount of cardboard, put the lid back on top, and let the worms go back to doing their work. In 2 months' time is the 1-year anniversary, so I'm thinking I'll post another video to show you the progress that the worms have done in only a short 2-month period. From now until then, happy growing